Right now, we're going to be joined by Daniel Stone. He's the senior reporter at Newsweek and the Washington Bureau. There's national politics. And you can find him at Newsweek.com and their political blog, The Gaggle. Good morning. Great to talk to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
I have been a long time fan of Newsweek magazine, for decades. And then it was last year or maybe the year before that the magazine sort of evolved and changed into something new and different. For the people who haven't seen Newsweek in a long time, what is the new premise that the magazine is built around?
Oh, well, no, it was actually last year that we did a massive redesign and a massive update of kind of our style. Mm-hmm. And whereas we used to kind of recap the news, much of which, happened during the week, what we realized was you probably already heard that news. So what we're doing now is taking kind of the first take at next week's news. So kind of previewing and reviewing in a way that's pretty smart and brings in the newest reporting from places like Washington, New York, and the entertainment scene out in L.A.
And they're nice long articles that you can sit and relax and read. You know, some of the other magazines are now into the boxy sort of quick take sort of things, and I know maybe that's popular. But so you're somewhere in between Time/the old Newsweek and U.S. News and World Report in terms of depth of reporting, right?
Exactly. We want to dig deep and really give you new reporting rather than just recap, like I said, what you've already heard. So some of these are long essays. Some of these pull together brand new reporting from Capitol Hill and the White House to try to move the ball forward on the issues that everyone's already been talking about.
Yeah, well, I love it. It's terrific, and I'm glad that Newsweek has found its way forward for sure. The president has been campaigning with gusto in the final week here before the midterm elections, and yesterday he said that Republicans had driven the economy into a ditch and said that we got to have middle-class families sitting up front. We don't mind the Republicans joining us. They can come for the ride, but they got to sit in the back. Isn't that a little bit of an uncomfortable thing to say? Doesn't that evoke Rosa Parks?
It's a good question, but that's been his campaign kind of analogy for the past couple months. He's gone around and the analogy has evolved, but he says, no, they're the ones who drove it off. They beat up the car. We had to push it out of the ditch. We're the ones that got all sweaty and dirty trying to get the car working again. And now the Republicans want the keys back. Well, guess what? They can join us if they want, but there's no way we're letting them drive. So I don't see too many racial overtones there, but he certainly had fun on the campaign trail saying, comparing these Republicans to maybe, 15, 16-year-old drivers who certainly can't be trusted again with the keys.
Just seemed a little awkward. They got to sit in the back. It was just, I don't know, it rang funny to me, that's all. So did at Rhode Island now. Apparently the president declined to endorse his party's candidate for governor, and so that candidate, Frank Caprio, said that Obama can take his endorsement and shove it. I don't really remember hearing talk about the United States president like that from candidates in the past. Not in my lifetime.
Certainly salty language up there, but the reason why the president had received support in 2008 from Lincoln Chafee up there, who's a third-party candidate. So the president said, out of deference for someone who supported me, I'm just going to stay out of that race. I think there are several good candidates. Of course, the Democrat in that race, when he heard that news, said, I don't need the president's support. He could take his endorsement, and like you said, of course, this is coming after he asked for the president's endorsement. So certainly some hurt feelings up there.
So what are the chances, I know everybody wants to know this, but what are the chances of some sort of GOP takeover of the national legislature, the federal government? Do they have a shot at the Senate?
The GOP has an excellent shot at the House of Representatives. It's certainly conventional wisdom now that they're going to win probably about 40 to 50 seats. They need 39 to take over and make John Boehner of Ohio the new speaker. The Senate is a different story. The Democrats are likely to retain control of the Senate, and certainly the Democrats have the White House with President Obama for the next 2 years. So what we did in our issue this week is take a look at what that would mean for the Republicans to take the House and the Democrats to retain the Senate, and what that would mean for governing over the next few years with issues like energy and health care and immigration and congressional reform. We take a look at each specific issue.
What do you think a Republican-controlled House would mean for Obama's reelect?
It could go both ways, and here's why. It could mean more gridlock and more partisan bickering. Of course, the Republicans are in control of the House. They're unlikely to bend on Obama's agenda. That can include things on, like I said, immigration and energy reform, which are likely to come next. But it could also be helpful because for 2 years, the Republicans haven't really had an opportunity or a reason to really play along with the Democrats. If they are in charge of the House, suddenly they have a responsibility to govern. And if nothing gets done over the next 2 years, certainly that looks bad for them as well. So we're likely to see a lot more compromises and maybe motion forward in a way that's not exactly what Democrats and President Obama would hope, but certainly moves that ball forward and gets both parties to the table with an incentive to hammer out compromise.
Anybody who pays attention to politics or watches any of the chat shows has seen John Boehner, who would presumably be the new Speaker of the House under a Republican-controlled House. But for those who haven't, what kind of guy is he?
Well, he's a very stark contrast to President Obama and Nancy Pelosi, the current Speaker. He's someone who is very chummy with lobbyists, the New York Times has found, and who does a lot of he sticks his neck out for interests like oil and natural gas for those drillers who for fossil fuel type energy, and he's very much in favor of reducing taxes and reducing the deficit. Very typical Republican conservative issues. He's run this year on there being no jobs, so unemployment is clearly very important to him. Over the past 2 years, he's run against the president on almost every issue. He hasn't yet articulated exactly what he would do should he become Speaker on every issue. So that's what we did in this week, is try to find out what it would mean with him at the reins and how that would be different from what we've been seeing.
I suppose the morning after the midterm election next Wednesday is when we see lots of people start their race for the presidency. Does that make sense?
That's true. First, before that happens, we're likely to see a lot of lawyers. Remember, a lot of these races for Senate and the House around the country are neck and neck, and that means if they're anywhere close to even on election night, both sides are going to get their lawyers out. But you're right. After we get the full results is when 2012 starts. One of the things everyone's asking is what does the Tea Party mean? Is it really a movement, or is it going to fizzle? And to answer that question, we're going to have to see how many of those candidates actually get elected. They certainly got themselves nominated, but if they get elected, that means good things for Tea Party candidates, perhaps even Sarah Palin when it comes to running for president.
Could Sarah Palin run as under the Tea Party?
She certainly could. She's making a lot of overtures that she will. The question is, can she win? Right now, the answer looks like no, she wouldn't be able to win. But if a lot of these candidates, like Christine O'Donnell in Delaware, Nikki Haley in South Carolina, Sharon Engel in Nevada, if those candidates win, that certainly makes her stock go way up. And she'd have to tack way to the center in order to really capture more hearts and minds than she already has. But it's not out of the realm of possibility at this point.
So you could have a Democrat presidential candidate, a Republican, and then Sarah Palin in a third-party role, or would the Tea Party be under the Republican umbrella?
There are a couple scenarios where it happens. If she just runs as the Republican, the White House would certainly find itself very lucky. That's what they've said. We probably won't get that lucky, they said. But one of the floated scenarios now is the third-party candidacy of Michael Bloomberg, the current mayor of New York. If Obama was the Democrat, Palin was the Republican, and Bloomberg was the independent, it certainly would split the vote to a point where no candidate would get 270 electoral votes. Now, to get in the weeds, you need 270, or the president is chosen by the House of Representatives. If it's controlled by the Republicans at that point, which it likely will be, that's one avenue to get Sarah Palin into the presidency.
Wow, this is going to be fun, huh?
It will be. It certainly will.
Does Newsweek magazine have any sort of political lean one way or another, or do you play it down the middle?
No, we play it pretty down the middle, and one thing we try to do is skepticism of everybody. So take what everyone's saying and really run it through our apparatus of truth and workability and pragmatism, and try to figure out, the best ideas and who's just talking in Washington.
And we will be reading Daniel Stone. Thanks for the chat this morning. Appreciate you being with us so early.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
All the best to you. Talk again soon. That's Newsweek Magazine's Daniel Stone, who covers national politics from the Washington Bureau. And you can find him at newsweek.com and their political blog, The Gaggle.